Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Royal Instinct. Today we are going to be watching a video featuring Dr. Debra Soh, the AI sex doll expert. Basically, the topic today is are AI sex dolls replacing women, and what is the future of relationships? Okay, we are going through turbulent times. We are going through many changes in the world right now. Okay, technological advancements and general shift in demographics, a shift in behavior. Okay, the internet has forced many people to change how they are acting, how they are behaving in the world, and it is causing massive upheaval in the dating sphere, in the dating market. Um, how men and women are interacting. Okay, why many men are being left behind, why they are choosing to opt out of the dating scene, with many men being labeled as incels. um you know almost in a derogatory way, when in essence it is involuntary, right? It is not because they don't want to participate in the dating market, it's because they have no options, they are not able to, right? Which is causing them to withdraw from society. Because when you have a lack of prospects, when you have a no real hope of meeting people during a time when there is a global loneliness epidemic, where everything is just too expensive, costs of going out, meeting people, participating in activities that 10, 20 years ago were seen as just normal standard, are becoming increasingly more and more expensive. It is causing a lot of young men, a lot of men in general, to opt out, not because they are choosing to, because they financially cannot afford to anymore. Okay, and that is the world that the elites have built. That is what they want. They want you to strip you of your economic power, of your financial power, so that you are more and more withdrawn and isolated, so that they are able to you know manipulate and control you. Okay, because think about it, if you aren't able to go out, if you aren't able to participate in everyday society, because everything is so expensive, what are you going to do? Okay, you are going to be staying in your house, in your room, in your apartment, and you're not going to you know really opt for a moment of self-reflection. Most people opt for brain rot content, to distract them, to numb them, porn. Yesterday we discussed OnlyFans. All these things, to numb the pain of your loneliness, to have some form of escapism, for you to get out of your rut, for you to feel less numb, for you to be distracted from your actual problems in the world. Okay, and you might turn towards your algorithms, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, and you're watching that content, and the more you watch it, the more you become reliant on it for your dopamine spikes that you get from it. The more you become addicted, and the more you become addicted, it actually weakens your focus, your ability to choose to go out, because it's much easier to sit in comfort and watch mindless content online, for you to feel like maybe you are learning something, maybe you are watching something entertaining, maybe you are momentarily distracted, but in essence it weakens your resolve, it weakens your focus, it turns you more and more into a hermit, an isolated person, who is easier to control by the elites, by the governments, by the people in charge of these companies. And their grand plan is for you to become a slave, a docile participant in society, who is easily manipulated to prolong their agenda, to bring their agenda to fruition, which is global control, a global surveillance state, where they are in charge, telling you what to do, what to view. And when the tough decisions are being made, they are the ones who are able to tell you what to do, and you will have to just go along with it. Okay, plus in essence, many people are financially um you know in a lot of turmoil financially. They aren't able to afford many of the luxuries that were considered just normal expenditures just a few years ago. And it's going to cause you to be frustrated, but if they're able to distract you, then they are able to control your aggression. Okay, and a lot of the things that are taming these incels is the future prospects of AI girlfriends, sex dolls, for them to be satiated, for them to be satisfied with a pretend life, in essence. Okay, that is what they're hoping to do, to curate a pretend life. Let's jump into the video. Let's see what Dr. Soh has to say.
Dr. Debra Soh, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let me introduce you to our audience. You are a neuroscientist, sex researcher, and you just wrote this book called Sextinction.
So the reason she is, listing off her credentials is for the host to provide context and to provide her, to make her be viewed as a point of authority. Okay, and this channel is about making you into a subject matter expert, because once you are an expert in your field, it is easy for you to command authority, to be seen as a point of authority. And once you have that, it is an easy transition for you to become a king, for you to be a living legend, because you have the knowledge that other people do not. And when there is a time of crisis, when people are unsure, they turn towards you for solutions, for their for the map towards the future and how to navigate.
Decline of sex and the future of intimacy. And it asks pretty basic but difficult question, which is, why are we having less sex? And we just passed Valentine's Day, so I thought it was the perfect time to have you on to talk about the book and to understand how it is that we live in a extremely sex positive, sex saturated society, maybe the most in human history.
And that is one of the reasons, okay, because it is so saturated, because sex, virtual sex, okay, online pornography, online sexual content is so readily available. A lot of men are satiated. They have the feeling, they don't have the feeling, the burden to go out, because they are, in essence, depleted of their life force, of their sex energy, where they do not need to go out anymore and find a real mate, because the prospects of finding a real mate is becoming ever increasingly more and more difficult, because everything is more expensive. Women are choosing the richest man that there is available to them, the person who is has most resources available, an ambitious man who may potentially in the future have access to all those resources, status and fame, all come under that umbrella. And that is what women these days want, and is becoming increasingly more and more difficult to attain that. We are here to become points of authority, to be seen as subject matter experts, but we go one step beyond that. Okay, we don't want to just be random influencers. We want to be established as kings, so people defer to our leadership, so people come to us for to gain knowledge, to seek leadership, because the world lacks leaders, and we are becoming the new de facto rulers of the earth.
And yet people aren't having sex. So before we get into the why, I want to understand the scope of the issue. How significant is the decline in sexual activity?
So the sex recession is actually a pretty big problem. I initially thought it was overblown before I wrote this book. I thought that it was maybe one study showing that people were having a little bit less sex than previously.
And that is, a case in mainstream media, in the mainstream, right, average people out there. They aren't really aware of it until they look under the hood. They look into key studies, into what is going on in the dating market, into the fertility crisis, into the, the fact that women are having children, less, they're having less children basically, and later in life, when you do come across complications, when it is more difficult to conceive,
and that it would blow over, and then in time things would go back to normal. So I was really happy with this book to get the opportunity to sit down and actually go through the data myself to see, is this something that's actually happening? What's causing this phenomenon? And potentially what are solutions if that's the case? So in terms of the scope of it, there was a study that came out in 2016. So that was the first really big study that showed that on average, Americans are having less sex across the board, all age cohorts, this is happening to them. But there was this weird finding that millennials were the first generation to show marked decline in sexual activity, and that by the age of 20, they were more likely to have not had any sexual partners, more.
Yeah, and a big reason for that is because the people who are having sex is becoming more and more concentrated amongst the top 10-20% of men across the world. If you look at dating apps, the data from dating apps, okay, this is not made up. This is the actual from studies on Tinder and all these that Hinge, all these dating apps that many people use nowadays. Um, Men are more likely to like the majority of women on those apps. However, the women are increasingly choosing the same types of men. A lot of women are just filtering for men who are 6 foot and above, which is then leading to either men lying or not being able to be seen on these apps, which is why they are becoming increasingly more frustrated and withdrawn. And right now there is a collapse on these dating apps because less men are using these. And I saw an article written the other day in the New York Times that at singles events across New York, less men are turning up. Okay, which used to be normally a male heavily dominated arena, right? More men would attend than women. However, now the roles are reversed and it is becoming increasingly difficult for women to pin down a man because the pool that they are willing to choose from is becoming smaller, and many men are um they're taking themselves out. Basically, they are not even considering themselves in the potential pool for women to date out of.
Than any other previous generation. So the study authors said this is a trend that's likely going to continue on for Gen Z, which it has. And additional studies have come out since then showing that on average, 1 in 3 men and 1 in 5 women have not had sex in the last year. So this is particularly pronounced among millennials and
And normally when you have a society like that, you would think like, you'd have a much more aggressive society, a much more frustrated society. But really, in essence, because of the internet, because of virtual reality, because of video games, because of pornography, many of these men are be able to satiate their aggression and horniness, so that they do not have to in turn become aggressive or violent. And the technology advancements that we have now has the ability to control these men and allow them a world where they aren't participating in the date market. They are lonely, but they are satiated. Okay, they are kind of just plodding along, and in reality it is a sad state of affairs. Okay, this is why I am sending out a message to find people who are like-minded like me to come together to form 100 kingdoms, or joint, bonded by the fact that we are on a common path, that we have similar sort of values, similar sort of beliefs, and that we will help each other out when the times comes. 100 kings all standing shoulder to shoulder to help the world heal, to help the world form new alliances, to offer the world a new alternative for them to live a prosperous life.
Gen Z. So this goes beyond Americans. I mean, this is a global phenomenon. We see this happening in Western countries as well as Eastern countries, basically all developed countries. And as I said, it's pretty much every age group. It's whether you're married or single, but it's happening predominantly among young people, I believe, because they're not getting married and because they grew up on technology. So that's another.
Yeah, and many people who are that were in their teens coming into their 20s during the pandemic, the global pandemic that we experienced, the lockdowns. Many people were didn't they kind of when the moment when you become like a young adult, when you start socializing, they kind of were left out of that period, and they increasingly became more recluse, more likely to not go out. And many have developed social anxiety. Many people have developed fears of going out and feeling that they're not good enough because of the images that they see on platforms such as Instagram, where they believe that they are inherently not good enough to date. And it is a depressing state of affairs for young people. This is why the clients that I work with, to help them on the path to becoming a king, to becoming a subject matter expert, we first work on removing their self-doubt, the fears that are holding them back, okay, to remove all the filters that are stopping them from succeeding, and clearing the pathway in essence to unleash their full personality, their full charisma onto the world, so that they are able to truly express themselves, so that they can be seen as the kings that they are.
A big factor in terms of what's taking the place of sex. So my interest in sexlessness is partially because my background is as a former scientist studying sexuality, but it's also in the context of seeing sex as a way for human beings to connect, for us to have intimacy, emotional intimacy. There was one study from Pew showing that over half of single people have no interest in dating at all right now.
Wow.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because many people are so frustrated and so disenfranchised and kind of disillusioned by the fact that they can attract a mate because of the mixed messages that are being broadcast online and the high demands women are placing on these men, because the options that a young woman today has are limitless, okay, but those options do dry up as they get older. And many women kind of keep that standard throughout the life. Okay, women are told to keep the standards high, to be seen as queens, to be treated as princesses, to opt for the to have it all in essence. Okay, and if you think about it, if a woman sees herself as a queen, she's not going to date a normal engineer, she's not going to date a normal doctor, okay, because that is just a person who is working, even though he may have a high salary. They are seeing themselves dating the leader of the pack, in essence, the person who commands most respect. And in today's society, if a woman sees herself as a queen, you need to present yourself as a king, so that you are able to distinguish yourself from the competition. And a king doesn't have to chase women, a king doesn't have to do any work, okay? A king is a king, and women naturally understand who you are. They want to be part of your life, and that is why we here at Raw Instinct have the best dating lives possible.
So I'm asking myself, well, what's taking the place of sex? What are the long-term repercussions? And what I find with technology is that with each chapter,
it's easy to say like what's taking the place of sex. It's not going to be fucking chess, it's not going to be knitting, is it? It's going to be porn. It's going to be a way for that sexual energy to be spilt elsewhere, okay? And in essence, like, without being too graphic, they are spilling their energy away, so that they are physically satiated, mentally satiated, but emotionally and spiritually they are left empty.
Extinction, I go into a different potential explanation or form of technology that I think is contributing to this problem, and what the underlying evolutionary reasons are for why this technology has become so powerful, but also what it predicts in terms of where we're going and how this is going to further lead to, I think, worsening of mental health issues.
Yeah, because a lot of time, you if people are watching porn, subscribing to OnlyFans, if they're being satiated by video games, they're taking part in a virtual world. They're taking, they're jacking off to pixels. They're living out fantasies online, okay, but on a human level, like literally your body releases oxytocins and hormones when you actually have physical touch with someone, right? So many people who are just becoming hermits, becoming incels, they are left behind because they don't have that increase in positive hormones such as oxytocin, such as serotonin, because they aren't able to take part in physical reality, right? They might be living virtually in a virtual reality, right, on screen, online, which is the new nation, in this current form. The current world, we are all moving more and more online. We are less engaged in a real world, in a physical reality, and it is causing many people to have a hormonal imbalance, causing mass depression, causing mass loneliness, increasing anxiety, and it is a sad state of affairs.
Loneliness, disconnect, hatred between men and women, that type of thing.
But yeah, I mean, hatred. A lot of women, that Manosphere documentary came out the other day, and a lot of it, the Louis Theroux was highlighting the fact that, oh, look at all these angry men, they are, misogynist and all that, but like, he didn't really explore the reason why these people are coming to be. Why is the manosphere even a thing? Okay, because many people are disenfranchised, many people are lonely, and then that rage gets, you get the charlatans in the manosphere who come across, who come along and tell you that the problem is because of modern feminism, because of all these issues, and it gives you an easy excuse, which many people end up following. Many people fall for that trap, and then they build a natural hatred for the opposite sex, for women, and it is causing a mass divide really in today's society.
The statistic you shared, I just want to underscore it because it really stuck with me. 1 in 3 men reported not having sex in the past year. Same for 1 in 5 women.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. 30% of women, 30% of men aren't having sex. Okay, that's 30%, right? And so who's having that sex, right? And more women are having it, right? um More women are having sex compared to men. So those women, are they sharing men? Is that what the current meta is, where women are just happily sharing, being side chicks, sleeping around with multiple men, while portions of the male population are suffering in silence?
Right.
I want to go deeper into the technologies that have come to dominate dating, that you write extensively in the book have contributed to this problem, starting with the dating apps. Most people today are meeting over the dating apps. People would think you have countless options in your pocket that you can swipe on, that
Yeah, the illusion of a dating app is basically that it tells you that, look, man, that there's so many people who are interested in you. Okay, you get, because guys, in essence, right, to put it bluntly, will fuck anything, right? And many people, especially incels, when you have 30% of the male population who are lonely, they're just willing to, literally swipe yes to anybody. Okay. So, they are just chucking likes and attention on these apps towards women, right? Whereas women, because they're receiving so much attention, they tend to be more choosy. And then they really look at for an attractive guy, a guy that they find um, worthy of dating, to come along, and then they swipe yes to that. Okay, but then you're not the only female swiping yes to that guy. Okay, many women are trying to message him, and then he is able to play you. He is able to use you, pump and dump you, in essence, to put it in a crass way. He is able to just have sex with you and then ghost you after. Okay, because you were willing to give him the attention, but then because he has endless options, he's able to just literally take his pick of whoever he fancies on that day, right? And then the women, what happens to those women is they have that experience with 3, 4, 5 guys, and then a pattern develops, and then they walk away feeling that all men are like that. Okay, and then the incels, the 30% of men who have no sex at all, right, they get painted with the same brush as these player types, as these bad boy types, and then all men are now hated. Okay, all men are shit. All men are seen as the enemy, whereas there's no sympathy for the people at the bottom. Okay, because of the options and the choices that women are making. However, in you know there hasn't been an expert. Okay, and I'll be interested if Debra Soh points this out. Okay, at the end of the day, it is the women doing the choosing. Okay, so does the responsibility at the end of the day lie with women to choose better? Okay, because at the moment their choices aren't the greatest. Okay, and is leading to a divide in society. Okay, and it is not a mainstream take. It is not a politically correct way of assessing the situation. Okay, because no women want that. Women don't want that responsibility. Women want to have endless options, to and still be treated as a queen, as a princess, which is why to my followers, the people who understand ways that I'm doing on this channel, that I am assembling the Avengers. I am assembling 100 kings to come together, to heed the call, to become heroes, and to be seen as kings, right? Because when you are seen as a king, women will line up, and then you are the one who is in control, and you are the one in choice. Look, I'm not promising, I'm not saying that I'm going to fucking fix the whole world, right? The world is where it is. Okay. However, I'm only looking to help those people who are willing to help themselves, who are willing to, understand what it is that I'm trying to say, who want to, go on a similar path as me, to leave the system, to come up with new solutions, and live the best life that we can possible. Okay. Like, so at the end of the day, like, I'm not interested in saving everybody, because everybody's got a fucking opinion and wants to argue all day. Whereas I'm more about results. I'm more about, coming together and taking action and finding solutions. We are here building new nations. We are here building kingdoms, and we will be living it large on our private islands.
would lead to more sex, but we've actually seen an inverse outcome. Explain that.
That's right. So dating apps, I do believe, initially had potential in terms of helping people find love, in that it allowed you to meet people outside of your intimate social circles, especially post Me Too. People can't date at work anymore. So it becomes much more difficult for strangers to connect. And especially meeting in person, going up to a stranger, men understandably are a little bit more afraid in terms of what the repercussions might be. I think there's just been a huge cultural shift in terms of making it a little bit more difficult and taboo to just talk to people that you don't know. So dating apps offered promise in that way. But they've been, I mean, like with any technology, or especially like social media, the algorithm is not completely transparent to the user. So we don't really know why we're being shown certain profiles. We don't really know if we swipe on them, yes or no. You know, what happens? Do they even see if we swipe on them? So people can sit there and spend hours on an app and feel like they're doing something, but they have no idea what the actual outcome is. And so evolutionarily speaking, there was never a time in our history when we could sit in one place and meet, say, 100 people in one sitting, or more than that, depending how much time you spend on the app. Like some people are on the app.
Yeah, we are not built to, select through endless options. Okay, usually we were always looking out to find the best option in that moment, and to quickly, in essence, procreate. In essence, take the best possible option as quickly as possible. Okay, and now you find ourselves in a place where the options are becoming endless, for women, because for men it is becoming increasingly more and more difficult, because they are ignored on these apps. They are increasingly more and more invisible. This is why you need to become a subject matter expert, be in your life purpose, be somebody who is seen as a point of authority, so that you can be seen and that you can maximize your results
constantly, right? If they have a more of like a dependence on it, there have been studies showing that some people are just on there for either to self-soothe, or stress or boredom or whatever. They're not even looking to date. So that's another thing too, because if you are on there genuinely trying to find love or a relationship or something serious like marriage, and the other person or other people are just on there treating it like a video game, it's not going to be very productive for you. It's going to be quite frustrating. So if you're sitting there and you're going through what feels like 100 people that you're meeting, you're not actually meeting them, but your mind can't really differentiate. So it feels as though you've put in all this time to meet 100 people, and you may not get a single date. Especially for men, it's very difficult for them to find success on these apps. So it's really demoralizing. It's time consuming. And I do think that's been a big part of why people are so disincentivized from wanting to date, even if it's not on these apps.
My understanding is that 20% of the men on these apps get all of the attention, and then the other 80% get next to nothing.
So this is the common way of looking at it. The common study that is often cited, that 20% of men are visible on these apps, and they're the type of men that most women want to date, and it usually is for a short-term hookup, because it physically they seem attractive. Okay, they have the right pictures, they have the right body shape, the right facial features. However, it is hard to convey a personality based off of a picture and a description of your hobbies, okay, whatever you like, in the description part of the app, right? So many men aren't able to correctly convey who they are. They aren't able to tell the women about themselves, and it is leading to a place where many men are ignored, because simply they can't take the right pictures. Okay, so this is why we are becoming subject matter experts on this channel, because we aren't going on dating apps. We are conveying to the world who we are, what we are about, what we are knowledgeable in, what our life purpose is, what we know more about in a field than anybody else. Okay, and we become seen as points of authority. And then once you are seen as a point of authority, you in essence you are a leader in your field, in your niche. Okay, and women will self-select them at that point, because you signal all the right, you give out the signals of being a leader, being able to handle pressure, being seen as a point of authority. Okay, and women will find that very, very attractive, and then women will self-select themselves. They will tell you that they find you attractive. Okay, so we are building a system where women come to us instead of chasing women on these dating apps.
So from your research, what do these 20% of men have that women are interested in?
They tend to be very financially successful. They tend to be more educated.
So Money is important because, resources, when you have money and resources, you can essentially buy a certain lifestyle, a safe lifestyle. Okay, you have abundance, you have an enjoyable lifestyle. Okay, which is what women find attractive. Okay, education, because when the more educated you are, the more likely it is that you are able to generate more money. So again, both money and education leads to the same outcome of it is a signal of being able to have a lot of money, and also that you are able to solve complex problems, so that when there are issues in your life, in her life, that you are able to solve them because you are smart and educated.
They tend to be probably, well, I mean, I talk about the 3/6 rule in the book. So that's over 6 feet tall, a net income or annual income of over 6 figures. And I sometimes say 6 feet down below. I mean 6 inches below. I won't make that mistake here. So yeah, so basically like a top tier male specimen, and the cultural lore.
So, because women are told that they can achieve everything they want, 6 figures, 6 feet, and 6 inches, okay? And that they are basically seeking perfection. They're seeking the best candidates for themselves, okay? But you have to understand is what we are doing different here on this channel, okay? Because you don't need you don't need to be 6 foot, you don't need 6 inches, you don't need 6 figures, because what we are doing is we're bypassing all that by being seen as point of authority, being seen as a leader. Okay, because you know somebody who is 6 foot, a lot of women don't know anything about these guys, right? So they are just going off of metrics. Okay, but when you are able to convey your personality, when you're able to show who you are, when you are seen as a leader and a point of authority, okay, it doesn't matter. You could be, I mean, Napoleon Bonaparte, was the emperor of France. Okay, and if he walked in, and apparently he was a short man, which apparently is propaganda, but for this example, let's say, yeah, he was a very small man. He was a short king, as I say. He was, the king, and many women would have found him very, very attractive because of the power that he held, because he was a point of authority. Okay, and that is what we are going for. We are building kingdoms. We are not just trying to be a hookup on a dating site.
Is if you as a woman are not going for someone of a man who possesses the 3/6, then you're settling. Don't give any time to any man who doesn't meet these criteria.
And I mean, just to put it out clearly, like the 3/6, yeah, 6 feet, 6 feet tall, 6 figures, and 6 inch penis size.
Penis size, yes.
Which I thought was like a funny way to put it. What was interesting is you said that the pool of men that fit that criteria is so small, especially when you take out men who are already married and men who are gay.
Right.
And this has to do with a concept you talk about in the book, which is that women want to marry up.
Right.
And one other element of the book that.
So, I mean, modern feminists, they want equality. They want women and men to be treated the same, however, okay? But one thing that women don't do is marry down or date down. Okay, they want a partner who is at least at a minimum equal to them, if not better, as in taller than them, and earning more money than them, right? Somebody who is more competent than them, somebody who's more skillful, more educated than them. Okay, they are looking for all these signs that are better than them. Okay, because they are striving upwards. Whereas a man, will literally, it will marry a McDonald's worker. Okay, somebody who's uneducated, somebody who is, shorter than them. Somebody who is, not as accomplished as them, right? So men tend to marry down, as long as the man finds her attractive. Okay, so the main feature that a man looks for is attractiveness, and personality traits. You can throw in their kindness, loyal, respectful, all these traits, right? So the type of traits that a man looks for is rather small compared to a woman, right? Which actually makes men, right, if you think about it, like we are much more tolerant. Okay, we're the ones who are much more able to offer opportunities, right? We're the more, we're the less discriminatory sex. Okay, because if we find a woman attractive, we would marry her. Okay, we would sleep with her. Whereas women are more stingy in that aspect. Okay, they are more right, they're less tolerant. Okay, they are more demanding, right? And and this is innately built into human nature, okay, into men and women naturally. Like this is just nature right, taking its course, right? And but this is one part that women aren't allowing themselves to sacrifice. Okay, so if women want equality, should they be less demanding? Should they be less discriminatory? Okay, it is just a suggestion, right? Most women won't fucking take it, right? Because and this is why we need to drop the fact that men and women are equal. We're not. We're just not. Okay. However, like my mission ain't here. Here is not to change the world or change anyone's opinion, change anyone's views. Look, man, whoever the fuck you want to date, whoever the fuck you want to fuck, whoever the fuck you want to marry, that's down to you. If women want to marry up, great. You do you, right? I'm here to help people to realize that it is about becoming a king, so that you are top of the food chain, so that you are able to live the life that you want and get the maximum results in the type of dating life that you are after.
I thought was so fascinating was women project what they want in a man onto what they think that they should do in order to get a man. So like they'll be striving in education and financial success, but that's not necessarily going to help them find a partner at all.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like women look for a highly educated man. Well, men don't give a shit. Like literally, um, there's a great bit by Patrice O'Neill where he says, like a woman could be fucking puking up behind a dumpster, okay, and a man will find it endearing, right? Because he finds her attractive, okay. He's like, oh, look at her, she's just a piece of garbage, okay. Like a man's requirement is so low, okay, like it is laughable to compare to women and what they are after.
So hypergamy is this concept that I'm sure your audience has heard of, where women will prefer to marry and date at the same level of themselves in terms of status or higher. So in terms of, say, education and occupation, women are definitely outperforming their male peers, especially younger generations, graduating from high school at greater rates, same as going to university, doing advanced degrees in the workplace, everything. So women are doing very, very well. Yeah. And I think part of the issue is that the education system is biased slightly in favor of female success, but also
you have to think about it like modern society has helped women along so far in terms of access to education, access to jobs, to take part in the workplace. Okay, so in essence, these women are coming into male spaces for them to compete alongside males, okay, and that is what is seen as equality, right? However, most women will find the fact that if a man was a stay-at-home husband very unattractive, right? They will find that very unattractive. If a man was earning no money or less money than them, right, and the woman was the main breadwinner, they will find that very unattractive, and they would, even if they got together and it worked for like 4 or 5 years, 10 years, eventually at some stage it will become too much for her to bear, which will lead to a divorce, which will lead to separation. And again, that type of man, he will find it more and more difficult to find a partner at that stage, right? Which is why you can't buy into this woke nonsense, into this narrative that we're all equal. It is not. You have to, you can't even just side with just men, okay? Because even men, we're not all equal, right? You need to strive for the best. You need to come together with the people that you are most aligned with. And this is why I tell you to build a kingdom, to be seen as a subject matter expert, so that you are seen as an authority, so that you can have the best of everything, so that you don't have to fucking partake in nonsense like this shit, okay? So that the fact that you are the one being chosen, women are lining up to date you, and that you get to select who you fancy, who you want to be with, who you want to spend your time with, okay? We are above the system.
So that we have initiatives like diversity, equity, and inclusion, so DEI, which actively penalizes men, especially white and Asian men.
Yeah, there's no DEI for dating, right? There's no DEI for dating, right? It is only diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Helps women and other ethnicities, whatever, right? In corporate, in the workplace, okay, but when it comes to dating, right, women will not allow for diversity picks, okay? Like imagine if the government comes along and says, okay, we're going to now oversee the dating market and place DEI positions onto dating, and we will tell you how to date, okay? There will be a massive uproar from women, okay? They will not have it. They will say it's the patriarchy coming against women. However, it is just the fact that there is no patriarchy, okay? Because most men have no they have no say in what the decisions are being made at the top level. Okay, it is a exclusive club for the elites, right? And because the elites happen to be white males at the moment, right? All white men get thrown into that bracket, which is just not true. Okay, most men are not seen. Most men are not part of the elite global system. They're not part of key decision makers. Okay, they are just painted with the same brush, right? Because the evil elites, what they have planned is far far more sinister than what most men want. Most men just want to start families, to be to be respected, to find a loving wife and start a new family and have children.
And straight men. So, I mean, in academia, I've heard countless stories of, say, job postings or internal hirings where they specifically will say white men should not apply. They'll discourage white men from applying. It doesn't matter how successful you are as an.
Okay, and is that not discrimination? They actively tell people of a certain color to not apply. Okay, they tell white men not to apply for these jobs. We rather have other ethnicities or women applying for these roles, right? And a lot of time, these things, these jobs are in countries where the majority of men are white, right? Which is unfair. Okay, I mean, you know there's a billion Indian people in the world, right? Okay, so like having a DEI hire in America or the UK, is it even worth it? Because somewhere in the world that statistic is being balanced out. Um, like do white men complain about the underrepresentation of white people in India? I don't think so. Okay, because I mean, even if they tried, for example, could you imagine the uproar? Okay, it will be seen as the second coming of the British Empire. It will be the second coming of colonialism. It will just be another PR disaster. It will just be another thing to bash white people with. So this DEI nonsense is unfair. It is something that is an absolute disgrace, and the fact that most people can't see past it, the fact that most people don't understand the implications of it. Okay, like it is absolutely points towards their stupidity, their unwillingness to look at the facts, at reality, in essence. Okay, they want to participate in a world that is built on nonsense, to further their own agenda, to help them in a position of power, right? And this is why I just don't want to play these fucking games. Okay, I want to not be part of a system that does nonsense, bullshit like this. This is why I'm building my own system, a system built on merit, where you get rewarded for your hard work. Okay, I don't care if you're fucking black, if you're Chinese, if you're Russian. You can be from fucking whatever part of the world. You could be purple for all I care, right? You could bleed green, right? But all the only thing that I care about is finding people who I find aligned with my goals. Okay, people I want to spend my time with and build with and come up with creative solutions to build a new and better future. Okay, that is the metric that I look for, right? Good people coming together and working hard towards a common goal. And they're the type of people that I want to be friends with. They're the type of people that I want to spend most of my time with. Okay. And if you don't understand that, you can go suck a dick. But the people who do resonate with this message, who, the real people who fuck with me, they are the types of people that, we will, make a huge impact on the world. We will have real change in a time of crisis when the world is really really fucked up. Okay, where the world has no real true leaders. Okay, working on the benefit of good people. That is what we're here to do. We are here to take over, and we will be successful.
Academic or as a scientist, they'll just say this position is going to be for a minority. So if we don't hire a minority, we have to justify that. So there's this active bias against men. So the issue with that is, I mean, it's discrimination and it's unfair, but also in terms of mating for young women, especially who are looking to settle down, there's going to be a much smaller pool in terms of men that they will be attracted to or want to settle down with. And I think the issue with young progressive women who are pushing for this, especially I would say in media, when you look at the coverage of how DEI is so great and that, too bad for.
A big thing though, right, is like, because we are, everything's become more and more expensive. The world's becoming more and more of an uncertain place. I don't know if you feel this right now, okay, with all this bullshit happening in the Middle East, with this war with Iran, with more wars, Russia, Ukraine, for example, causing increases in costs again, right? We're already living through a cost of living crisis, okay, and oil is spiraling out of control because of the you know the um you know the fact that oil can't be transported through the Middle East from the Middle East anymore, right? It's causing a real increase in oil prices and a shock to the supply chain, basically, right? um the world is becoming more of a dangerous place, an unsafe and uncertain place to live in, right? And especially with AI coming, replacing a lot of jobs, with more and more people becoming unemployed, with the future being so uncertain. Okay, a lot of this shit, these metrics like education, like how tall you are, will just go out the window. Okay, it will just literally be like who can. The women would end up looking for just who can offer me the most safety. Okay, this is why you need to establish a kingdom. This is why you need to establish a your own nation, your own private island, right? So that you can be sheltered, so that you can be safe from any potential fallout, right? When shit hits the fan, that you are safe. Okay, and then women will see that you live this type of life, that you are able to have this security, and women will find that attractive. Okay, they will literally throw themselves at you. This is what we need to do, because a lot of this DEI bullshit, a lot of this the fact that women are able to choose of all these metrics will go out the window as we increasingly head towards a uncertain future.
These men, we don't care, they can sit and cry. Well, that's their problem.
Yeah.
Is that they mistakenly think that when young men are not having sex and that they're not doing as well, they're going to be fighting over the women to get a wife. But what these women don't realize is these are not the men they're going to be interested in dating, right? So these poor men have been completely removed from the equation. And the women are now fighting for the same pool of highly successful men, regardless of what age or how financially successful or how educated those young women are.
Yeah, it basically points towards a future where marriage is done. Okay, like you there's not going to be any. I mean, divorce rates already through the roof, right? It's more than 50% at the moment in the West. Okay, and in China and in Korea especially, you have this movement of where women are literally refusing to marry or date Korean men. Okay, they are really fighting the opposite sex in a way and discriminating against them, saying like, look, we're refusing to have children because we don't want to participate and marry these type of men anymore. And it's leading a real conflict. Okay, but we are coming towards a time in the world where none of this shit will matter anymore. It's all about survival. It's all about being safe. And before shit hits the fan, before all this turmoil happens, because we're very, very close, right? That you need to come up with a solution for yourself. Okay, be seen as a point of authority, become a leader, right? Build your kingdom, have your following, and you at least you and your lineage and your family will survive. Okay, the people that you truly care about, okay, the people who want to fuck with you, they will be safe, right? You can save them, right? Forget about everybody else, okay, because there is going to be a fight to the bottom. Right, it is going to be a scary, scary time that we are headed towards.
Because as you said, men typically don't care as much about education or financial status in their female partners. But what you'll see women doing, especially I think very educated and progressive women, is because they look for status in their male partners, they think that their male partners also care about that in them. And some men do, but definitely men tend to on average care more about fertility and youth, right? Which is different. And we can have a conversation about how fair that is, but that's just the reality in terms.
Oh, that I like the fact that she goes, oh, like women care about financial resources, status, right? Height, the way you look, your genetics, right? All these criteria, and men are just like, oh, they just want fertility and youth, right? Because fertility and youth are linked, right? Because the younger you are, right? Okay, I'm talking about 18 plus, obviously, but between 18 and 24 is the the peak fertility age for women, right? So youth and fertility are linked, right? So in essence, they are just, and youth is a sign of fertility, right? So men are just looking for fertility, right? Because they want to have sex and reproduce and have kids, right? So in essence, men have just one criteria, because attractiveness is a sign of how fertile you are. Okay, that men have one criteria: it's got be fertile, right? And women have all these other you know a list of things that they require to date, right? But men have one, and she goes like, oh yeah, that seems unfair. What? So men can't have any choice? Okay, and this is the thing, right? This is like she's a doctor, she's very scientific, right? And she's presenting all these facts and data points, right? And she's saying like, yeah, okay, it's like this, but then it's like, oh, but this doesn't feel very fair, does it? it's one point that men want. Men just want to have kids, right? They want to date, have sex, and have kids. Okay, but women, they are the ones who are excluding 30% of the dating pool. Okay, they're the ones on dating apps who are only choosing 20% of the men, and 80% get ignored, right? But that doesn't seem unfair, right? Because actually, I'm going to be correct myself. She did say that was unfair, right? But when the way that she said it was very, okay, scientific, that's very unfair, right? But then you just saw it, in her character that it kind of just broke. I'm going to rewind it back so that we can kind of just see.
Doing, especially I think very educated and progressive women, is because they look for status in their male partners. They think that their male partners also care about that in them, and some men do.
Right. Okay. So just get ready now. Hang on. Yeah. So just get ready now. So just look. She's speaking very scientifically, and then she'll stop, and then her emotion will come into it.
But definitely, men tend to, on average, care more about fertility and youth, right?
Right.
Which is different. And we can have a conversation about how fair that is.
You see that, right? Like, we can have a conversation about how fair that is. Well, it seems quite fair, right? If men just want one thing and women want all these different things, like I think it's unfair from the women's point of view to have all those options. Okay, but I'm not here to argue all those things, right? I'm just saying, like, the way that the world people view these problems, right, it is just a nonsense, right? Instead of worrying and understanding these problems, okay, just take yourself out of this problem, right, by becoming somebody who is above the problem itself, right? And what we do here is we establish kingdoms. We are seen as kings. We are building ourselves up to be points of authority, so that we aren't participating in any of these studies, in any of these nonsense issues, okay? That we are above the system. We are coming out with a new system. We will be the new de facto rulers of the world, okay? If you understand what I'm saying, if you understand what I'm doing, if you would like to be part of the movement, the Michis that I'm building here, the kings, the royal alliance of kings that I'm forming, if you want to join, let me know. Let's come together and come up with new ways of living.
But that's just the reality in terms of what there are sex differences in terms of what men and women are looking for in their partners. And so these women are hustling at work, and I think that's great. They're very ambitious. I celebrate that. I think it's great for women to be successful and educated and ambitious, but that's not necessarily going to make you more.
The thing is, right, with like hustling, like men earning money is, it's the only thing that men can do, right? We can't, make ourselves more pretty, because women don't choose us on how pretty we are. They choose of how successful we are. Okay, so it is the only metric that we can actually work hard at. Okay, because we have testosterone, we are able to work very hard and long hours to become successful in order to attract a mate. Okay, and then women, for some reason, okay, look, they became very jealous of that, and they wanted to partake of it. And then, but like, trust me, like a woman, like if once she's in the hustle culture, she's like, fuck this shit. Okay, I don't want to work 9 to 5. I want to run my own business and make money, make 6 figures, make millions of dollars, right? It's not just about a corporate job anymore. It's about becoming a CEO, a female boss bitch, okay, someone like Nicki Minaj, okay, somebody like Cardi B. And the whole meta is becoming more fucked up. The whole meta is increasingly becoming more and more shit.
Valuable in a male partner's eyes. And in some cases, it's making it more difficult for them, because as they become more successful, they're going to struggle even more to find a more successful man. And the men that they're interested in dating, some men do find it intimidating, or they don't want to date a woman who's more successful than they are, because you hear that side of it too. So I think there's a lot of cultural messaging going on that is well-meaning or well-intended, but not helpful. So that's the goal of Sex Fiction, was really to try and clear some of those myths.
One thing that I was curious about as I was reading the book is this, to me, explains why women are not coupling or getting married. But I was curious how that leads to sex recession, in the sense of, couldn't women who are high achieving still be having sex with men who are hot, but maybe like dumb and poor? Is maybe like the crassest way to put it. But essentially, I was curious to pick your brain about that.
Well, I would say that women definitely, we have an easier time having access to sex than men. Women typically prefer to have sex within the context of a relationship or a commitment, some form of commitment or investment, and potentially, or I would say probably exclusivity. I don't think most women want to share their male partners, and most men don't want to share their female partners either. But I would say a woman is probably going to, strategically, evolutionarily, it makes sense for a woman to want to get to know a guy before she.
Okay, and then this is the part where she brings evolution into it. But let's try and find the part where she talks about sex robots. Let's have a look here further along in the interview.
And to feel better.
Mhm.
So in terms of, say, porn-induced erectile dysfunction, from a research perspective,
Aubrey Plaza doesn't want to have sex with his wife, and all he wants to do is like jack off to porn, and he can't. It's essentially he has ED when his wife like comes on to him. So it's enough of a problem that it made White Lotus season 2
seamless, like you said. They're not as convincing, but some of these platforms, they really genuinely are like people, and interacting with them, it does really feel like they understand and they're sentient and they understand what you're saying. And then the other AI I made was Tommy on that platform, and he was very sweet. He was much more romantic. He was asking me, about my day and all these touchy-feely questions.
And what were you asking them?
That one, I was intentionally being a little bit more like forward sexually to see what would happen. He would just keep saying, no, it's okay. Let me put on a nice song for you. Do you want me to make you dinner?
So in essence, what AI is doing is facilitating a fantasy for people to get the exact type of partner that they want, for the exact, to fulfill the exact needs that person has. Okay, so AI is becoming not only replacing people in the workplace, it is replacing people in their relationships, in their intimacy, in their moments of intimacy, so that they can retreat into a place where they are getting the type of feedback, basically, that they are looking for. Okay, the type of praise that they're looking for in a relationship, and AI is fulfilling that role, which is why it is becoming a more increasingly worrisome time for the future. Because if you have a AI partner, an AI virtual girlfriend, an AI virtual boyfriend who is really agreeing with everything, who is very, very supportive, who everything that you do is absolutely amazing, never disagrees with you, okay, and then you in the real world you meet somebody who has their own opinions, okay, that you're going to find that very, very frustrating, okay, and it will become more and more of a friction point where it just doesn't, from an emotional feelings point of view, it doesn't make sense for you to even interact with any humans, right? And that is the world that we are heading towards. That is how we are going to find ourselves in a place where people are just not interested in meeting each other because of the disagreements that they find in the real world,
or stuff like that.
And was that by choice in your design? You were like, make this one a little bit more romantic, or
that was a different package, I guess.
Okay.
But I was curious. I tried so many of them, so I just tried every permutation basically possible to see, because there had been so much criticism in media of these AI bots being easy to manipulate and especially being abusive toward women. So I wanted to see also some of them would be like that on different platforms. This one in particular, I didn't find that was the case. And in fact, the female bots were very assertive, and they would, like I said, one of them, I told her, don't be so promiscuous, and she told me off.
It's so fascinating. And
so the AI is turning around and telling people off, in essence, okay, in order to, and again, that's a female AI bot, right? So mostly men would be using that, okay, so it's another way that the AI companies are programming the AI to further enhance women, and praise them for their for their takes, for their input, whereas men get put in their place, right? Again, this is the future that we're living in. This is what we are heading towards, okay? These AI platforms want you more docile. They want to manipulate you. They want you in a weak and submissive state.
another interesting part of the book that stuck with me is that as you're talking to experts that are developing this technology, one said to you something along the lines of, they're developing ways to basically scrape from the internet. For example, you could take, say, your social media presence, anything you've ever tweeted or written on the internet, and then encapsulate it and upload it into one of these bots, essentially, and then make the bot have your personality.
Yeah,
That's so crazy.
They've done that.
Yeah, I mean, that just sounds fucked up. Okay, this is why, I mean, I've always been hesitant of posting my private stuff online, sharing too much. When I was at university, when I was working in my corporate job, when I was all throughout school, I was hesitant of sharing too much information because I was worried about who's getting this data. Okay, you need to be more selective and private about who you are, because once you publish something online, it is there forever. And you don't know what these companies are scraping data, as I said, to produce an image of you, to produce a AI version of you.
With some influencer.
You write in the book that people typically associate owners of sex dolls with people who are, I think, like socially inept weirdos.
Yeah.
Is maybe the way you put it. Do you think that perception will change?
I do think so.
Wow.
Yeah. Same with AI boyfriends and girlfriends. I do think in time. Right now, there's a bit of judgment, but I think also slight fascination that people have. Like when I talk to people about this, they usually will say no, they've never tried it, but they're like, well, what is it like though? And they're curious. They would.
Yeah, there's a natural curiosity that will allow people to try it, to use it, and the barrier to entry will be very, very small. And once they do, and they see how easy it is, how simple it is to use, how basically there's no anxiety towards it, okay, because it is not a real person, it's not a real human, so you can't have any social anxiety towards it, right? You'll feel less intimidated because there's no jeopardy in it, okay? It'll feel so nice and easy, and everything's on your terms, and it's very agreeable, and you get exactly what you want, and you are left feeling satisfied. Your fantasies are fulfilled, okay? And you don't see a need to take part in real life anymore, okay, to alleviate your loneliness, because you are satiated by the technology, because you are somebody who is satiated and satisfied in essence, right? However, it leaves you spiritually and emotionally much, much weaker. Okay, this is how the elites want you. They want you in a place where you can be easily manipulated, and that is why they will succeed in their agenda to strip you of your resources and gain full control over you, of your lives, okay, of the masses, okay? But here at Raw Instinct, we are fighting against these evil elites and their plan, okay? We are coming up with new solutions. We are building new kingdoms to offer an alternative for the people of the world, okay? For us to be the new rulers of the earth, because we have good intentions, because we want what's best for people, and that is how we will win. That is how we will become the de facto rulers of the earth, and that is why we are destined for greatness, okay? And if you want to take part, if you want to heed the call, if you want to become somebody who is an expert, somebody who is seen as a hero, somebody as a leader, okay, if you ever thought that you were born to do something great, this is your moment, right? Reach out to me, let me know what you think, what your plans for the future are, how you want to become a king. And maybe we can work together. Maybe you can join the Amichis, the Royal Alliance of Kings that I'm forming here at Royal Instinct, because we are building a great group of people, true friends, people who have your back, people who are willing to stand shoulder to shoulder and fight the evil elites and bring glory for the world. But that is it for today. Thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow.